All right, welcome back to Sunday Nation. What happened on Monday Night Football with Damar Hamlin, of course, the Buffalo Bills safety, is sparking a lot of conversation about the NFL, of course, violence on the field. It's a violent game, we know that, but is this a reckoning moment for the NFL? I wrote a column, of course, my column in the Detroit News runs every Monday and Thursday. This week's column is on the issue, and of course, I talked to Emmy award-winning television producer Tony Mottley, who has covered sports in the 70s and in the 80s, who has followed this violent game over a long period of time. He's quoted in my column, and of course, he's here in studio talking to us this Sunday. Tony, thank you so much for being back.
Being back. Well, let me correct you. I did not cover sports in the 70s.
Right.
Late 80s.
In the late 80s,
yeah,
that's right.
But I was at a game in the 70s.
That's right, that's right.
I was a young man at that time.
So I want to begin with this. We know reports coming out saying that Damar is recovering.
Mm-hmm.
He's doing, he's kind of, he's recovering. That's what we're hearing.
Purposeful movement.
Yeah, that's the word they call it. But I think this entire thing puts a lot of spotlight on the NFL.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's the part that they don't say out loud. And when you approached me about this subject, I don't think you knew how involved I've been in sports before.
Right.
It's something I care a lot about. I'm interested in, but I realize too it's a business. It's entertainment, but it's a business. Mm-hmm. And the NFL, nobody is as powerful as the NFL in terms of as a business, in terms of marketing and everything that they do.
Yeah, and it's a powerful political force
Very
too, because we
much
saw
so.
that during the, kneeling down and all of that.
And it's a billionaires club too.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It is.
And so you're talking about a league who literally prints money. For example, they just got a new contract for the NFL Sunday Ticket, which DirecTV paid $2 billion for a few years ago. Google paid them $5 billion for this. Significant money, and that's just a small part of what the NFL is about. Mm-hmm. And in every step along the way, the NFL believes, even in the pandemic, in increased TV rights increased during the pandemic to now. The cost to air a broadcast of an NFL game has gone up exponentially. And so at the same time, the benefit that the player gets has been reduced dramatically. And so how do the profits go up and the benefits to players go down? Mm-hmm. And I think what people don't understand, and Damar Hamlin, unfortunately, is an excellent example of this, in that a player we've never really heard of in his second year, which means he's not a vested veteran. He has no eligibility for extended benefits or pension, mm-hmm. gets catastrophically injured in the field of play. And essentially, he's on his own. The team has no realistic further obligation to him medically beyond the minimums.
Yeah.
A man that's 24 years old, if he had a wife, children, family, whatever, how does he make ends meet?
But the NFL doesn't have life insurance, which I found out in my research. They don't give life insurance to their players.
Players can, and this is something people say, push back on me. They say, well, players should be aware of the risk. They're aware of the risk. But you show me the young man. Why does the Army, the Marines recruit 18-year-old boys? Because they don't think anything's going to happen to them. Okay? Players are you couldn't play that game if you had fear. So they prey on that idea of these young men are fearless. None of these players, having known many of them over the years, mm-hmm. they don't believe their careers are going to end. They don't believe they'll get injured.
Mm-hmm. They feel they're invincible.
Exactly. And we have to protect these guys from themselves. And the other thing is people say, well, they participate in this freely. Absolutely they do. But they take a risk every play. Routine play Hamlin's injured on, And so when you are putting people at risk like that, the least you could do is give them a long-term medical benefit. And that's not happening. Players are on their own. And players that aren't vested veterans, 3 years of service or more, their benefit in this case, is based on what they're able to negotiate individually with the team.
Yeah. You know, I was looking at the contracts that were announced for some of their top NFL players last year. Like, let me pull it up here. Aaron Rodgers from the Green Bay Packers, you know, he's expected to make $50.3 million.
Absolutely.
And he's among the top 10 earners of the 2022 NFL season. But the average rookie player makes about $700,000 a year.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think
so that disparity itself.
There is a disparity in the way players are compensated.
Right.
And the thing about it is it's collectively bargained. But I have to say this, the NFL Players Association, NFLPA, has probably done the worst job of anybody in negotiating with the league. The NFL players have the worst contract ever, no guarantees. Very few players have guaranteed, less than a handful have a guaranteed contract. And so when you look at what's happening, you've got a multitude of players on a team, a roster of 53 players. There's maybe 7 star players, and the rest of these guys are Damar Hamlins. They're just guys. And that's not to demean them.
Right.
They're just worker bees.
Yeah.
And so unless players like Aaron Rodgers, Matthew Stafford, Tom Brady step up and say, hey, this is wrong, it'll never change, because the average worker bee player on a team, their career's 3 years long.
Yeah.
They can't hold out. If they hold out,
Yeah.
they'll be gone.
Yeah.
They're replaceable. And they don't have any leverage because of that. It would be only the star players that say, this is unconscionable, we must do something. They almost have to, they could shut the league down.
Yeah. You know, I saw there was a lot of writing online regarding Damar's contract, and we can't verify this, but there were, you know, several unverified websites started bringing it up. I think $3.6 million, $800,000 a year. But when you
that
look
means
at the,
nothing. When
you look at that amount and to what's been put out in terms of just the average rookie player, $700,000 comes close to. I mean, it's basically nothing here. But do you feel that what happened to Damar is perhaps the light bulb here?
It should be. It should be. It should be an awakening for fans and journalists and star players. Because what happened to him could happen to anybody.
That's true.
And it's happened before. It's not the first time.
Yeah.
What I said to you was, I was at Tiger Stadium,
right,
which has been torn down in 1971, when Chuck Hughes had a heart attack and died. Subsequently at Ford Hospital, but basically died on the field. It's happened before, and it's going to happen again. But the long-term injury that a player sustains is going to sustain. In other words, they say in NFL circles about injury that you're guaranteed to be 100% injured because of the nature of the sport. It's a brutal sport. What is the league, what are the owners going to do to provide insurance and compensation of benefits for players across the board? That's the question. You know, you can argue about whether they should play or not. I think people have the right to choose a profession and take whatever risk. But you can't make billions of dollars, with a B, billions, and give the players. The player now gets less than his contract for benefits than he got 5 years ago. How can that be?
Yeah.
It's not right.
But you know, part of the problem too, though, I think, is because when we talk about the NFL, you know, they normally dangle, you know, how much Aaron Rodgers and others are getting paid. But normally, nobody really focuses on, you know, it's funny because I saw the New York Times also this week looking at the salaries and, you know, the health issue. And it boils down to what we're talking about in terms of just how insufficient it is. And that normally, it doesn't become an issue, or hardly becomes an issue, until you have a Damar Hamlin issue.
Well, and I think that's the extreme part of it. But then think about this.
Sure.
What NFL players in a survey, they've said that they feel 91% of players feel they have aches and pains related to football post-career. 91% of the players. Most of them can't collect, even the vested veterans, can't collect a significant long-term benefit until they're 55. Hey, when the average career is 3.5 years, let's say the guy plays double that, 7 years, on average 30 years old, 25 years to wait for a benefit is a long time. A lot can happen.
Yeah.
And we know their life expectancy shortened. How many players have we seen, even this Franco Harris, people dying early. These men die sooner than average people. So it just, again, I think that the money that's being made and the money that's being invested in the players' health and well-being is wrong.
So this is how I feel about it too, though, on the health issue, because as long as the violence remains the constant feature on the game, and I mean, you described it so well, the gladiatorship, the Roman gladiator games,
Absolutely.
and, as long as it remains a constant feature of the game, I mean, this is not going to change.
No, well, I think, and I don't think fans even want it to change. I think fans, there's some plays, like I think in football, the kickoff where they line up and they run at each other, probably should be outlawed. It's not necessary. I mean, it would change the game, but not significantly. Not as much as the three-point shots made basketball different. But I don't think we know when you just have collisions built into, but they're going to be everyday collisions in regular plays, but to just line people up and run them at each other, that's just unnecessary violence. So there are things that can be done, and there are things that have been done. When I was talking to you about this Chuck Hughes 1971 and looked back at, there's video of that on television, on YouTube, there's a hit between Dick Butkus, legendary player, and Charlie Sanders that's just couldn't happen today. Okay? So they've decreased the violence, but you can't get rid of it. It's part of it. And again, it's what fans want.
So we know Damar is not Aaron Rodgers.
No.
So he's in a whole different financial situation compared to Aaron Rodgers.
He's like most players. And that's why I say,
that's what makes this more painful.
This could happen, and if it happens to one of those guys, first of all, if it happened to Aaron Rodgers or a player like that, there'd be more outrage. But most players,
why? Because he's a superstar.
Because he's a superstar, and people know who he is. People don't know; they've never heard of Damar Hamlin. Most of the league is made up of guys like Damar Hamlin. And those guys, that contract is $700,000. Oh, that's a lot more money than most people will ever make in a lifetime. But that's not a lot of money.
No.
That's not.
When you get hit with a major health issue, it's not a lot of money.
And then when you consider what a Rodgers or Russell, Stafford, those guys make 30, 40, 50 million. What's $700,000? So comparatively, it's not a lot of money. And the league is asking 60, 70% of the players to work for small contracts and put their lives at risk. And the unfortunate, but the reality is, the lower paid players take more physical risk. They're the ones that run down on kickoffs. They're the ones that used to be wedge busters, which you just one guy running into four guys. You know, that kind of stuff, full speed. It's wrong. It's just wrong. And I think nobody wants to address that because they have to admit the kind of unnecessary violence of football.
So what's the obligation here of sports reviews, newspapers, sports magazines? Because we don't see this, and what you're saying is real. This is what goes on.
The people that are closest to the game, the reporters, the Stephen A. Smiths, those people, not to call him out directly, but those reporters, those journalists, those columnists that have deals with the NFL, where the NFL airs on their network, they're reluctant.
They have access to the passes,
their credentials to cover football, their access to players will be restricted. You know, and so clearly they're not in a position. They're not going to call them out. They exist. I mean, ESPN is not what it was 20 years ago. Doesn't make the money that it made, and their survival really right now is depending on the NFL. Games. The NFL. The NFL. Without the NFL, listen, a Super Bowl ad 30 years ago cost less than $1 million. Now it's $5 million. I mean, this is real money. Okay? These guys, and so when they say dance, you say what song? You just get to it. And that's the way so-called journalists cover the football. And you see it on the local level. I mean, the Detroit News or the Free Press this week, during the holiday week, Dave Burkett, who covers the Lions, has been covering them for maybe a decade. He was furloughed. I mean, And coverage of the Lions is probably one of the most popular things in the free press. So without that, if Dave Burkett's credential was revoked, it's over. So yeah, these guys, it's hard for them to call them out.
And the teams can revoke your credential.
They'll do it.
They don't have to give you a reason
time.
why they do it.
Listen, the Lions, God bless them, revoked the credentials from the radio station that had their contract several years ago. Went to a AM station, which is nobody's on AM anymore.
Right.
Okay, for sports.
Right.
And then subsequently have circled back to the FM giant sports station in this market, but they revoked their credentials because they criticized the team, but the team was losing. Here's the thing, Bankole, think about this. When teams claim and the league claims it's about money and it's too much money to be paying these guys insurance and all that.
Right.
When's the last time did the Lions, when they were 0-16, did you ever hear about them being ready to sell the team? No. You know why? They print money.
Yeah.
They are super profitable.
Yeah.
Okay, it doesn't. Winning and losing doesn't even enter into the equation because they make money.
But that doesn't trickle down to the Damar Hamlins.
Oh no, no. I mean, we say offer me none for you, and it's very true when it comes to the NFL. The small guy, those guys that pay the price, that do the dirty work, that take the most risk, get nothing, next to nothing, compared to what the big time players get. And the leagues turn their back and working hard to give them less.
Yeah.
That's what's maddening about it.
But I think now people are going to see or follow what the NFL is going to do with Damar, whether he becomes an exception here in terms of how they respond to his health challenges.
Well,
and what the financial compensation would look like.
Well,
I mean, the NFL could change his financial compensation any day
well,
if they want
to.
Listen, I mean, they can reorganize his contract if they want to.
It would not surprise me, possibly, that the Buffalo Bills did right by him. But by virtue of his NFL contract, they're obligated to do very little.
Okay.
Very little. And basically, like I said, he's on his own. But
this is a situation also where public sentiment, if it grows, meets what their obligation is, and sometimes they will bow under pressure because of public sentiment.
It'd be interesting to see.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, I think in order for that contract to change and for the position of players to change,
right,
it would be, you can't depend on all the players, the worker bees, to go on strike. It's got to be the bigger, higher paid players to say, this is wrong,
right,
we got to do better. Because that's what people tune in to see. Tom Brady says, I'm not playing on Sunday until you fix it, then it'd be different. But until then, it ain't happening.
All right, Emmy award-winning television producer Tony Mottley always tells it like it is. Here, thank you so much for being here.